shock and outrage on campus after racist and discriminatory comments come to light, allegedly tied to a fraternity chat group. Plus, as COVID-19 cases continue to mount in Windsor, Essex, we take a closer look at how schools are playing a major role. We've been dealing with some rain this week, but it looks like that should stop long enough for a sunny weekend. Nick Sirkovich will bring us the full forecast later in the show. I'm Katerina Georgieva. Chris is off tonight. Hundreds of people are expressing their outrage online. This after hateful messages allegedly shared among members of a fraternity at the University of Windsor were exposed. The CBC's Tamina Aziz has been following this closely. Tamina, what can you tell us about these messages?
Yes, Kat, we've seen screen grabs of some of the messages allegedly shared among members of Delta Chi fraternity. We could not view the original pages on our own. We're only seeing what has been shared online through student-led groups such as Expose You Windsor, which fights against racism on campus. Some of the comments we read promote and glorify violence and involves derogatory, offensive, and racist language. We aren't showing viewers at home these explicit messages due to its offensive nature. Many people online are calling the language used sickening, disgusting, hateful, and disappointing. The university says they don't have a formal relationship with the group. It says Delta Chi is an off-campus organization that is allowed to book space on campus for meetings and activities. The president of the university issued the following statement, which in part reads, "I acknowledge and am very sorry for the pain this language has caused for students, faculty, and staff. As president, I take responsibility for the progress we need to make to ensure that our campus protects the emotional, physical, and psychological safety of everyone in our community. We will be immediately launching an investigation into this matter." The university says it will be immediately suspending any opportunities for this organization to engage with university activities pending the investigation of these matters. The University of Windsor is focused on addressing manifestations of anti-Black racism, homophobia, and other forms of discrimination across our institution.
Tamina, how are people reacting to this statement?
Kat, they don't think it goes far enough. Immediately following the release of the statement that was shared just hours ago, these student-led groups expressed their frustration and outrage. I spoke to second-year law student Josh Lamers, who's been very vocal about the anti-Black racism he's seen and experienced on campus. He says the university isn't doing enough.
The university is trying to do the work of distancing themselves from it, but these are your students. They're on your campus. Like, you even indicated they were able to book space. Honestly, I'm disgusted. I'm disappointed. I can't even focus on work because I'm just like, you have all of this evidence before you. You have had myself and other Black people and racialized people give you demands to guide you. How much more anti-Black racism do we have to be put through before the university concedes? Like, our demands are reasonable.
And some of these demands include hiring more Black faculty and creating safe spaces for Black students. I should mention that this incident comes about a month after two professors at the university said the N-word during classes. CBC News reached out to Windsor Police. They say they're looking into it from the university's perspective. We also reached out to the local chapter and its headquarters for comment and haven't heard back. Kat.
Thanks, Tamina. The CBC's Tamina Aziz reporting live. And a highly respected professor from Ryerson University is also reacting to this. Ray Reese is a sociology prof with expertise in anti-Black racism. And she's currently running sessions at the University of Windsor to support Black students as they navigate racism. Here's what she told me earlier today.
You have the dissemination of racist, sexist, homophobic, probably transphobic and Islamophobic sentiments coming from a faction of your student body. What are you going to do about it? The onus should not be on the students who are impacted by that to have rallying cries around the dismantling of this group. It should be an automatic response from the administration.
Reese is hosting sessions today for Black students following other racist incidents at the school, particularly in response to two professors using the N-word last month. You'll hear more of my conversation with Reese later in the show. Turning now to the latest on COVID-19 in our region. 33 new cases confirmed today, and another person has died because of the virus, a man in his 60s who had been in hospital since last week. That brings the total number of deaths for our region up to 78. 2 new workplace outbreaks were also reported today, one in the manufacturing industry, another in Lakeshore's healthcare and social assistance sector. And with cases rising rapidly in Windsor, Essex, we've told you that the region could be in the red zone by the end of the week. Some experts say that the spike in cases is driven up in part by the virus spreading through schools. The health unit has said that being a student is the #1 occupational hazard for COVID-19 in our region. Jacob Barker joins me now from FW Begley Public School, the site of the province's largest school outbreak. Jacob, you've been taking a close look at this. How exactly are schools contributing to the rise in case numbers?
You know, Kat, at least one expert I spoke with today says that the more testing we do at schools, the more cases we are going to find. You'll remember just about a month ago, we were seeing very low numbers of cases. Some days we wouldn't see any cases at all. That's risen a lot. Now we're seeing cases in the 30s, 40s, and 50s some days. And right now we know that in Windsor, Essex, there is a total of 336 active cases right now, and I just wanted to take a closer look at how the schools play into that number. So right now there are 679 schools across the province that have reported active cases. In Windsor, Essex County, right now, according to provincial numbers, there are 51 students and 11 staff that have reported positive cases in the last 2 weeks. This is at schools in the English and Catholic school boards combined. Now, 43 of that total is due to the outbreak here at Begley, and 5 are associated with outbreaks at Langlois. But there have been cases detected at 10 other schools in the region. One school not yet declared an outbreak has 4 cases. That's Riverside Secondary School. Others have 1 or 2 cases that have been reported.
And Jacob, you spoke with a biostatistician. Can you tell me what he told you?
Yeah, I spoke with a biostatistician today and he told me that he believes that there are much higher numbers than what is being reported right now, and it all boils down to testing. He says that it's a good thing that they found those high numbers here at Begley, but he says that because they did the testing at the school. He says that he thinks more testing needs to be done at schools to give us a true reflection of the extent of the numbers, and he draws a direct line between schools opening and the rise in numbers in the community.
I think when we have some of these schools associated with 50 cases, I think we can very, very safely say that in that case there, schools were not just reflecting the community transmission, but schools led to increased community transmission. And it's schools alone in Windsor that will lead to Windsor moving to a lockdown region to a red zone region early next week.
So Jacob, he thinks that more testing is needed. Is that something that we could see happening?
Well, actually, Premier Doug Ford did announce that there would be expanded testing that would be happening in red zones, places in the province that have reached a red level of restriction. But he didn't mention Windsor, Essex as part of one of those zones. Right now, it only applies to Toronto, Peel, York, and Ottawa. Education Minister Stephen Lecce was at the same press conference, and he was asked in the context of the outbreak here at Begley whether or not expanded testing would come to other places in the province, such as Windsor, Essex. Here's what he had.
Right now, the next 4 weeks are targeting the highest risk regions. We're following the advice of public health. If they determine and provide a recommendation that it should be expanded or we should augment the list, of course, we will continue to follow that direction and implement it swiftly.
So, well, there was no clear indication as to whether or not that expanded testing would be coming to Windsor Essex schools. We will likely be heading into that red level of restrictions at the beginning of next week. So when that happens, we will be sure to ask whether or not that'll be happening. Kat?
Thanks, Jacob. The CBC's Jacob Barker reporting live from FW Bagley. A somber moment today. Trees planted on the riverfront to honor those lost in a Ukrainian passenger plane that crashed in Iran earlier this year. 5 University of Windsor students and researchers were among those killed. In addition to the trees being planted, a bench was dedicated in the memory of those lost. The push for single sports betting took another step today. We told you yesterday the Liberal government would be introducing a bill to legalize it. Today, it was tabled. If passed, the legislation would end a decades-old prohibition on gambling. Industry experts say the ban has resulted in billions of dollars going to the black market and foreign gambling websites. The federal justice minister has dismissed claims that the legislation would fail to eliminate illegal gambling as planned.
We heard similar kinds of arguments for cannabis, and we're seeing statistically that the legal cannabis market is increasing with time and displacing the illegal market.
Lifting the ban is something Windsor MP Brian Massey has been pushing for years. And more recently, it got the backing of Liberal MP Eric Smerchuk. The legislation would allow for exceptions in the horse racing industry. That means for horse races, people would still need to go to the track to place bets. The Lakeshore Horse Racing Association is reporting a successful season despite pandemic restrictions. They've only been allowed to have 1/10 of their normal crowd sizes, but have made up revenue through online wagers. And as Dale Molnar reports, the association is betting new virtual gamblers will make next season even better.
This is what the grandstand at Leamington Raceway used to look like on race day. 1,000 people in the stands. This is what it looked like for the last 10 race dates this past summer. The first 3 days, COVID restrictions allowed no one in the stands. The Lakeshore Horse Racing Association was only able to offer online betting. Online wagering continued for the remaining 10 dates, with 100 people allowed in the stands. The combination resulted in a successful year. Some bets were even coming in from as far away as Nova Scotia. The president is hoping that as long as COVID-19 isn't a factor next summer, they should be able to have their best season ever when the stands can once again be full.
This year we did do all the simulcast wagering, and we got out to a vast market. So maybe next year, hand in hand, we'll bet yet again higher than ever.
Harness horse racing employs about 2,000 people directly and indirectly in Essex County, 10,000 in southwestern Ontario.
Drop Top Hanover has found a home here.
Horseman Don Leascheid is a member of the association and employs 3 people. He says the economic impact of harness racing in Ontario is immense.
For example, in 2016, the horse racing and breeding industry in Ontario is credited with contributing about $2 billion in economic activity to the province of Ontario.
Leascheid gets his figures from the body that oversees horse racing, Ontario Racing. He says local figures aren't available. Harness racing accounts for a small percentage of sales at this feed warehouse in Essex.
But we do sell, the feed, the animal health products. It's not near as much as we used to.
But 18-year-old Waverly Livingston, who works as a stable hand for Leascheid, says she would lose her job if horse racing went away.
I would have a very hard time finding another job. And there are only so many other farms in the area that take people.
The Horse Racing Association has applied to Ontario Racing Management to add 2 more race dates next season, but Williams is not confident they will be granted. He says they should find out soon. Dale Molnar, CBC News, Lakeshore.
When 2 University of Windsor professors used the N-word in their classes last month, school officials promised to take it seriously and take action. Now, a sociology professor from Toronto is holding virtual sessions at the university for Black students called Radical Collective Care and Resistance. You heard from Ray Reese earlier in the program. She says her sessions are an opportunity for students to speak safely and candidly about their experiences with racism.
my message is really that I'm trying to facilitate a space where they can feel comfortable and the rawness of this situation can be expressed without judgment, without reprisal, without any, any fear, in a sense that there's going to be a roadblock or a backlash to them. And I think that's really important. Let them have their spaces of anger. Let them have their spaces of memory where they can talk about, things that the memorization of things that have happened in their past that we don't get to talk about. Let that flourish in that space. So that's really what I'm hoping will take place today.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned some of the events at the university where professors had used the N-word in a classroom setting, and so this is a response to that, so to speak. So why is it so important to have this conversation for students here at the university, given what has been happening here?
Yeah, it's important to have the conversation because spaces, they're public spaces and then bodies are marked in those spaces. And students are in these university classes and they many times racialized students, particularly Black, Indigenous, and other racialized students are in the minority in terms of being numbers and represented in those spaces. And oftentimes the folks that are teaching them don't look like them. And so it's really important to understand the way in which white privilege works in these settings, and that there needs to be accountability and responsibility to the students and also to the white students that are in those spaces that are hearing these words and the message that is being sent. When situations like this happen. The university has a responsibility on the whole because universities are part of our environments, right? They're not separate and apart from, they are part of our environments. And so there's a collective responsibility and there should be a collective circle of care to protect those who are the most vulnerable in those spaces.
What do you think about the university's response? Because the school received a lot of criticism around this, and I'm just wondering what you think about it.
I think the response is bureaucratic, and I know that that's harsh to say. And I'm going to say it's bureaucratic because when things like this happen, there is a whole team of folks that start to problem solve because the political, the bureaucratic, the social optics are not good, right? And so I feel like administrations turn into, or they run into situations where they get in a mode where they have to troubleshoot and problem solve. And that often becomes a token statement about EDI, equity, diversity, inclusion. It often becomes, what the students hear is rhetoric and more of the same. What students want is to see concretized action and administrative changes, right? Statements can be only as powerful as the actions that are put behind them. So when statements are released, we're never surprised because statements have to be released, right? It's the lack of action and the reach in, I like to call it, as opposed to reach out, but the reach in to students around how best can we support you? What do you need? We don't need another statement that's going to be a political stamp on a very, very serious issue.
There's a chance some more rain might be headed our way, and then next week, some possible snow just in time for December 1st. Nick Srnkovic will tell us what to expect when we come back.
very much. Merry Christmas.
Welcome. Thank you. Have a good day.
All right.
You'll still see them, but maybe not quite as often. The Windsor Goodfellows are doing what they can to make the best of a difficult situation. Their annual newspaper drive began today, but their volunteers are not nearly as visible as usual when they stand on street corners collecting donations. With the pandemic, the Goodfellows have instead set up 150 static locations around the city.
People appreciate it. They still are supporting, and whether they're doing the online or whether they're coming through the drive-throughs, they are supporting, and it's for a great cause.
The money from the drive is used to provide food and clothing for people who otherwise could not afford it. Nick Srnkovic joins us now for the full weather forecast. Now, Nick, before we dive into the weather, I just want to show you just a little video and a couple of photos. Bear with me. Take a look at this. Some wild turkeys. I filmed this in my neighborhood the other day, and then this was sent in to us by a viewer. So just wild turkey spottings all around town just in time for American Thanksgiving.
I would say they're playing chicken, but I guess they're playing turkey for
playing turkey. I can jive with that.
Thanksgiving, yeah.
It's always fun to see them around.
That's a risky business for them being out there right now.
I agree. Very bold.
Yeah, exactly. But who could avoid this nice weather? Temperatures above seasonal today. And despite a little bit of drizzle earlier on, we hit 10 degrees, and that was through the morning and more or less sort of stayed there through the afternoon today. These temperatures above seasonal, and a pretty nice weekend shaping up as well. We're sitting at 8 degrees right now in Windsor at this point, so single digits. In fact, the high for today came around 6 a.m. this morning. It did come with some cloud cover and also a little bit in the way of drizzle as well and fog patches. The bigger picture, as we start to get into winter and the sun sets earlier, the satellite imagery doesn't show the clouds very well at this hour, but you can sort of see them on the image there. It's pretty cloudy right across the board, but not much to speak of in terms of major weather systems. Forecast model has that cloud cover sticking around. Look for drizzle or at least some patchy showers heading into tomorrow. Not a big rain event, if any at all, but some spotty wet weather throughout the day tomorrow. Clears out though as we head into Saturday, and that's the story for Saturday and Sunday. Monday, we'll get to that coming up in just a bit. A little bit different. We've got some rainfall to talk about. So there's a look at our forecast heading into Saturday. Overnight tonight, again, about a 30% chance we're going to see some patchy drizzle. Temperatures about 4 degrees and fog patches developing. As we head through tomorrow, winds pick up a bit. Fog dissipates 7 degrees, which is just a little bit above seasonal. Cloud cover and the slight chance of seeing a few spotty showers as well. Beautiful weekend shaping up at or above seasonal temperatures. Monday, though, system coming in. That's going to bring with it some wind gusts. It could be up to about 60 kilometers per hour, some rainfall. And as it passes on the back of it, that's the snow you were talking about before the commercial break. It doesn't look like a lot right now, but just warning you.
But still enough to mark that December 1st day.
That's right.
Thanks for this, Nick.
You bet.
When we come back, the latest on the long-awaited COVID-19 vaccine. Canada has finalized some purchases, and we'll bring you the details after the break. federal government has finalized purchase agreements with 5 of 7 COVID-19 vaccine makers. And today, the Deputy Chief Public Health Officer said some Canadians could be getting vaccinated in just a few months.
As things stand now, we expect certain vaccines to become available in early 2021. However, it's important to note that the initial supply of these vaccines will be limited. In the meantime, the Government of Canada, provinces and territories, and other partners are working together to identify high-priority groups who will benefit the most from these vaccines.
The government says vaccines from Pfizer and Moderna will likely be approved first, and negotiations are underway to finalize purchase agreements with Johnson & Johnson as well as Novavax. That is it for CBC Windsor News. Don't forget, for news anytime, you can go to our website at cbc.ca/Windsor, and we're on social media as well. You can check us out on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. The Rick Mercer Report is up next. Have a great night.